Happy Friday and welcome back to the Adventures of Toad. Today we are going to be hearing about his further adventures. So what happens after he jumped off that train yesterday? By the end of today, you'll need to turn in Friday, September 25th, ELA. And here's Toad in the woods. Our objective today is to complete a graphic organizer to prepare for writing an opinion paragraph. We'll do our read aloud, spend some time on sentences and fragments, and then we'll do our exit ticket. Our vocabulary words are not going to be written down anywhere unless you want to write them in a notebook, but keep them in your brain because they will be on your exit ticket. Our first word today is deprive, and this is to keep something from someone or to take it away. Deprive. Say it. Our next word is solitary. Say it. Solitary. And this is lone, the only one, or isolated. So let's quickly review. We've heard several themes in our story so far. We've heard about friendship, responsibility, irresponsibility, and hospitality. Would you consider Toad responsible or irresponsible based on his actions so far? So far, he's been pretty irresponsible. He's stolen things and now he's escaped from prison. He actually also wore a disguise in order to trick others into getting out of things. So he wore this disguise as a washerwoman to trick his way out of jail. Do you think Toad will continue to fool people, or do you think he'll gain a sense of responsibility? Let's listen carefully today and see if your predictions are correct, whether Toad will continue to be irresponsible or he'll gain a sense of responsibility. Let's find out. Let's keep reading. The front door of the hollow tree faced eastward, so Toad was woken up at an early hour. The bright sunlight was streaming in on him, and his toes were exceedingly cold. Just before he woke up, he had been dreaming that he was at home in bed on a cold winter's night. He would probably have been aroused much earlier had he not slept for some weeks on straw strewn on a stone floor. Sitting up, he rubbed his eyes first and complaining toes next, wondered for a moment where he was, then, with a leap of the heart, remembered everything, his escape, his flight, his pursuit, and that he was free. Free! The word and the thought alone were worth 50 blankets. He shook himself and combed the dry leaves out of his hair with his fingers. Then he marched forth into the comfortable morning sun, cold but confident, hungry but hopeful. He had the world all to himself that early summer morning, the dewy woodland, the green fields, the road itself. Toad, however, was looking forward to something that could talk and tell him clearly which way he ought to go. The country road was presently joined by a canal. Toad, having traveled fairly extensively, knew that both the road and the canal were coming from somewhere and going to somewhere. That's a fact, Toad, my boy, he proclaimed confidently as he marched along by the water's edge. Round a bend in the canal came plodding a solitary horse. From a rope attached to his collar stretched a long taut line. Toad let the horse pass him. With a pleasant swirl of quiet water, a barge slid up alongside him. The barge's brightly painted gunwale was level with the towing path, and its sole occupant was a large woman wearing a sunbonnet. So a gunwale is the top edge around the deck of a boat. You can see it right here. Nice morning, ma'am, she remarked to Toad as she drew up level with him. I dare say it is, ma'am, Toad responded politely as he walked along the towpath abreast of her. I dare say it is a nice morning to them that's not in trouble like I am. Here's my married daughter. She asks me to come to her at once. So off I comes, not knowing what may be happening, but fearing the worst. And I've left my business to look after itself. I'm in the laundering line, and I've left my young children too. I've lost all my money and lost my way, And as for what may be happening to my married daughter, why, I don't like to think of it, ma'am. So Toad is lying, yet again, trying to trick someone into having sympathy on him so that he can get what he wants. Where might your married daughter be living, ma'am? Asked the barge woman. She lives near to the river, ma'am, replied Toad, close to a fine house called Toad Hall. Perhaps you may have heard of it. Toad Hall? Why, I'm going that way myself, replied the barge woman. This canal joins the river some miles further on, a little above Toad Hall, and then it's an easy walk. I'll give you a lift. She steered the barge close to the bank, and Toad stepped lightly on board and sat down with great satisfaction. Toad's luck again, thought he. So he did get what he wanted again. He tricked this woman, and now she's going to take him back to Toad Hall. So you're in the laundering business, ma'am? Said the barge woman politely. And a very good business you've got, too. Finest business in the whole country, said Toad airily. All the gentry come to me. Wouldn't go to anyone else. You see, I understand my work thoroughly, and attend to it all myself. Washing, ironing, clear starching, making up the gents' fine shirts for evening wear. Everything's done under my own eye. But surely you don't do all that work yourself, ma'am? Asked the barge woman respectfully. Oh, I have girls, said Toad lightly. 20 girls or thereabouts. So do I, said the barge woman with great heartiness. It seems you are very fond of washing. I love it, said Toad. Never so happy as when I've got both my arms in the wash tub. What a bit of luck meeting you, observed the barge woman. Why, what do you mean? Asked Toad nervously. Well, replied the barge woman, I like washing too, but my husband, he's such a fellow for shirking his work and leaving the barge to me. I simply do not have a moment to see to my own affairs. By rights, he ought to be here now, instead of which he's gone off with the dog to see if they can't pick up a rabbit for dinner. Says he'll catch me up at the next lock. But meantime, how am I supposed to get on with my washing? Oh, never mind about the washing, said Toad, not liking the subject. Try and fix your mind on that rabbit. Got any onions? I can't fix my mind on anything but washing, said the barge woman. And I wonder you can be talking of rabbits with such a joyful prospect before you. There's a heap of things of mine that need washing. If you'll just take one or two of the most necessary sort, I won't venture to describe them to a lady like you, and put them through the wash tub. Why, it'll entertain you and help me. You'll find a tub handy and soap and a kettle on the stove. So she wants Toad to start washing for her because she can't do the washing and drive the barge, but Toad does not know how to wash clothes, so he is in quite a bit of a pickle. Here, you let me steer, said Toad, now thoroughly frightened, and then you can get on with your own washing. I'm more used to gentlemen's things myself. Let you steer, replied the barge woman, laughing. It takes some practice to steer a barge properly. No, you shall do the washing, and I'll stick to the steering. Don't try and deprive me of the pleasure of giving you a treat. So Toad lied up front and said that he's never happier than when he's washing clothes. And now this woman is using that against him and saying, you love doing this. You should want to. Toad was fairly cornered. He saw that there was no means of escape, and he resigned himself to his fate. If it comes to that, he thought in desperation, I suppose any fool can wash. Toad fetched a tub, soap, and other accessories from the cabin, selected a few garments at random, and set to. A long half-hour passed, and every minute of it saw Toad getting crosser and crosser. Nothing that he could do would remove the stubborn grime. Once or twice he looked nervously over his shoulder at the barge woman, but she appeared to be gazing out in front of her. His back ached badly, and he noticed with dismay that his hands were beginning to get all crinkly. A burst of laughter made him straighten himself and looked round. The barge woman was leaning back and laughing unrestrainedly. I've been watching you, she gasped. I thought you must be a humbug all along. Never washed so much as a dishcloth in your life, I bet. So humbug here means a person who is faking, and she realizes that's what Toad's been doing. Toad's temper, which had been simmering for some time, now fairly boiled over, and he lost all control of himself. "You silly barge woman," he shouted. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I would have you know that I am a very respected Toad. I may be under a bit of a cloud at present, but I will not be laughed at by a barge woman." The woman moved nearer to him and peered under his bonnet. "Why, so you are," she cried. "A horrid, nasty, crawly Toad, and in my nice clean barge, too. Now that's a thing I will not have." Oh, and here we see just what she's going to do about it. She relinquished the tiller for a moment. A big mottled arm shot out and caught Toad by the foreleg, while the other gripped him fast by his hind leg. Then the world turned upside down, and Toad found himself flying through the air. The water, when he eventually reached it, proved quite cold. He rose to the surface, spluttering. When he had wiped the duckweed out of his eyes, the first thing he saw was the barge woman looking back at him and laughing. Toad vowed revenge. He struck out for the shore and climbed up on the steep bank. Gathering up his wet skirts, he ran after the barge as fast as his toad legs would carry him. The barge woman was still laughing when he drew up level with her. "Put yourself through your mangler, washwoman," she called out, "and iron your face, and you'll pass for a quite decent-looking Toad." So here's the mangle that she's talking about Toad putting his face through. Toad never paused to reply. Solid revenge was what he wanted, and he saw it just ahead of him. Running swiftly on, he overtook the solitary horse, unfastened the tow rope, jumped on the horse's back, and urged it to gallop forward. He steered the horse toward the open country, abandoning the tow path. He looked back and saw that the barge had run aground on the other side of the canal. Toad laughed aloud as he continued to spur the horse onward. The barge horse was not capable of galloping about the countryside, and its gallop soon subsided into an easy walk. But Toad was quite contented with this, knowing that the barge was not moving at all. And that's where we're going to leave our story today. So Toad got revenge on this barge woman by stealing her horse, and the horse was essential for the barge because it was connected to the horse and pulling it down the water. In this time, it wasn't just a free boat and it wasn't motorized, it was being pulled by a horse. And without the horse, the barge runs into the side of the riverbank and now it can't go anywhere. So Toad has completely stopped this woman from being able to use her barge. Do you think Toad was right to seek revenge on the barge woman? You could say that she was not kind to him either. She did throw him into the water. But Toad lied to her up front, and she was doing him a favor by letting him ride in the barge to Toad Hall, but he didn't actually know how to return the favor by washing clothes. It was clear that he was deceiving her, and when he became rude and started yelling back at her, she threw him off of the boat, and then he steals her horse. So it still seems like Toad might be in the wrong here. From which character's perspective is today's Read Aloud experience? We see it was read from Toad's. What does Toad encounter after walking in the hollow of a tree in the woods? So he encounters the solitary horse, meaning the one horse, and it's pulling the barge. Does Toad's disguise fool the barge woman for very long? No, it doesn't, because the barge woman thinks it's funny that a washerwoman is having so much trouble washing clothes. Toad grows upset that she would laugh at him, so he reveals who he is, that he's a toad. And Toad gets his revenge from being thrown off the barge by stealing her horse and causing the barge to go off course. All right. So before we move on to our exit ticket today, I want to take a moment and review sentences and fragments. So in your exit ticket, you are going to have to tell me whether a phrase is a sentence or a fragment. and then you're going to need to rewrite it using proper capitalization and punctuation and adding the missing subject or verb if it was a fragment. So a fragment is any sentence that is missing a subject or a verb. This activity was from last week, and you might remember, number 1, has a boat. That is a fragment. We see our verb, has, but we don't know who has a boat. So if you wanted to make this a complete sentence, you would need to add a subject. So who has a boat? And you would need to fill it in. Thinking back to the very beginning of our story, we know that Rat has a boat. So if you were to write this as a complete sentence, you would write, Rat has a boat. If I were to convert this fragment into a complete sentence, I would need to make sure to capitalize Rat because it's the first word of the sentence and it's also his name, so it's a proper noun, and put a period at the end. Our next sentence, or our next phrase, is Mole lives underground. This has a subject and a verb, so it is a sentence, but we would still need to rewrite it because we need to add punctuation and capitalization. So we would say, Mole lives underground. Capitalize Mole, period at the end. Number 3, they knew friends. This is not a sentence because it's missing a verb. So it's a fragment. We would need to say, they have new friends. Capitalize they, period at the end. Number 4, they have a picnic. This has a subject, they, and a verb, have. So it is a sentence, we just need to add capitalization and punctuation. Wants a motor car. This has a verb, but we don't know who wants a motor car. We're missing a subject. So it's a fragment. If we were to complete this sentence, we could say, Toad wants a motor car, making sure to capitalize Toad and put a period at the end. And then finally, Rat and Mole are mad at Toad. This tells us who is mad, so subject and verb are both there. It's a sentence. We just need to change the capitalization and punctuation. Looking at this sentence, notice that there's more than just the first word capitalized. That's because there are 3 names in this sentence, 3 proper nouns. You would need to capitalize Rat, Mole, and Toad. On your exit ticket today, you will have some phrases that you need to decide whether they are sentences or fragments. If it's a fragment, you will select fragment from the drop-down menu. If it's a sentence, select sentence. Once you have done that step, for each situation, whether it's a sentence or fragment, you need to rewrite it as a complete sentence. So even if you have a subject and a verb, you need to make sure that you have proper punctuation and capitalization. So capitalize every proper noun, put a period at the end. You'll have 3 of these to do today. After that, you'll have some vocabulary matching, so fill in the blanks with the correct vocabulary word. And then finally, you're going to select a character in this first blank that you feel demonstrates the theme of irresponsibility. So that means being unreliable or untrustworthy. There's really only one character so far that has demonstrated this theme, so it should be pretty clear which character we need to pick that is irresponsible. You're going to select that name in the first blank, and then you're going to give 3 examples from our story of when that specific character was irresponsible, meaning you couldn't trust them, they were unreliable. Each of these blanks has a very similar question. First, this character demonstrated the theme of irresponsibility. When? So give me an example, another example, and then another example. So 3 total, 1 in each of these blanks. And that's it on your exit ticket. You'll find it right here under your Friday assignment description. There will not be another assignment in your description today for anyone. So you only have the exit ticket. You'll find it under classwork, week 3, September 21st through 25th. When you're done, don't forget to hit submit on your exit ticket itself, and then come back to Google Classroom and hit turn in. That's it for today. If you have any questions, feel free to call or text me, and then have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.